All things considered, there are strong arguments to say that Williams' decision, or even experiment you could say, with Franco Colapinto replacing Logan Sargent was a good one. He arrived onto the scene, hit the ground running, and pretty much matched Albon and even scored points. And straight away he impressed everyone, raised eyebrows, and created this kind of stir of, why isn't this guy signed up anywhere with the C's for 2025? A matter which, if you believe the news cycle, is not properly concluded yet, so watch this space. But on the other hand, there is also the argument that Franco's reach exceeded his grasp. He might have been pushing a little bit too far into areas which his talent couldn't yet support what he wanted the car to do. But even despite that, the potential was there. But there is also the factor that he was incredibly unlucky in the final rounds, which cost him potential points and might have poured cool water over the hype around his name. So with all that in mind, let's have a chat about Colapinto. Let's see, has he done enough to secure himself a seat on the grid, whether that's at Williams or elsewhere for 2026, and has he done enough to show teams his value and his potential to grow into a future race winner? So in order to set the stage, we need to go back to when Logan Sargent's departure from Williams was announced. After showing very few glimpses of promise and coupled with his inconsistency and ability to match Albon's performances, this led Williams to make a tough call, which in fairness was really a long time coming. And then shortly after, enter Franco Colapinto, a rookie with no prior F1 experience, but a solid reputation in the junior categories and a rising profile in motorsport. But Williams' decision to promote him wasn't just a gamble, it was really a statement of intent. Gone were the days of Williams using drivers from larger teams such as Mercedes. Williams were going to use their own drivers, their own talents, and not use the likes of Mick Schumacher or whoever Toto Wolff wanted to farm out to the Williams in the first place. Ultimately, Williams needed someone who could deliver under pressure, and Franco had to show the team that he wasn't just a short-term fix, he was a long-term solution. Now, the main problem that Williams had with these second drivers, such as the likes of Latifi and Sargent, was that they were slow and they crashed a lot. And I mean a lot. And for any team, that is just something you cannot work with. You're having to work 2 or 3 times as hard for just a fraction of the results. Williams just needed someone who could just keep it between the lines and not destroy the car. Now, whether they actually got that in Franco Colapinto is another story, which I'll get into shortly. But just someone who can just not wreck the car every weekend, surely. That's not too much to ask for, is it? Now, prior to Colapinto coming in at Williams, I must confess, I wasn't all that helpful, and that's mainly down to the mental scarring caused by Latifi and Sargent for so many years. All that shattered carbon fibre everywhere. So with no recognisable names emerging as contenders for this vacancy to Williams, although Esteban Ocon was reported to be there for a seat fitting, when Colapinto was actually announced, I have to say the thought was, here we go again. But amazingly and strangely, it turned out to be different. It turned out to be better. In fact, it turned out to be much better than I expected. At Monza, Franco immediately showed a level of maturity and a racecraft that seemed well beyond his years. He kept it tidy, he wasn't a pushover, and that is something that Sargent couldn't do for a whole year and a half. But then it was at Azerbaijan where he outqualified Albon. This must have left the Williams garage stunned. And then he brought it home behind Albon in 8th place to score his first ever points, and Williams' first double point score since 2018. And even that one was a fluke, so if you know when Williams last scored double points on merit, please let me know in the comments below. So this was massively impressive for Williams. Argentina suddenly had a new F1 hero, and Colapinto was all of a sudden the talk of the pit lane. And after narrowly missing out on points in Singapore, he scored again at Austin, but this time Albon didn't, because unfortunately his race was compromised. And this was a massive change for Williams, because for the last 2 or 3 years, if Albon doesn't score points or retires, you may as well just pack up, because the other car isn't really going to do anything. But now, for the first time in ages, Williams had 2 cars and 2 drivers that they could rely on to score points, and not it effectively being a one-man show, which is kind of the model that they've been operating on now for a little while. He was quickly becoming the most talked about man on the grid, and it looked like Williams had pulled off an inspired move. But a very controversial one too, because no matter how well Franco did, no matter how many points or whatever he got, The lineup for Williams for 2025 was locked out. He couldn't get in. There was nowhere for him to go. So all he could do was just finish out the season the best he could and just hope that either Williams or another team on the grid just came knocking. Now, I'd love to say from that point onwards, he went on to rack up more points and gave us more of a good impression, but unfortunately not. From Brazil onwards, we saw Franco have accidents and also see just plain bad luck intervening. Really just very much wrong place at the wrong time situations. And by the end of the season, after just 9 starts, Franco was catapulted up to 3rd in something very fascinating which you really should check out, called the World Destructors Championship, racking up almost $3.5 million in repair bills to the car. Now, in defense of this, he did have some quite massive shunts compared to the rather clumsy and avoidable mistakes that Logan Sargeant appeared to make. So considering all these factors, the DNFs, the massive repair bills, having no seat for 2025, how exactly does a rookie like Colapinto come back from this? So let's just go back to what I said about Logan Sargeant. He was slow, he crashed a lot and didn't score points. And for any F1 team, big or small, that is unacceptable. That is something you just cannot work with. And I've said in videos previously that if Sargeant was fast and had scored points but still had these accidents, that is something that you could kind of manage. And I sense this is exactly what Williams actually got with Franco. Yes, he was fast, but being a rookie still, he was still discovering where the edge was. The point where he can operate at the peak of his ability without crossing over that line and having accidents. And there were times I sensed, particularly at Las Vegas, where he was driving and pushing just a little bit too hard, a little bit too much out of his comfort zone. And I wonder, may he forgotten that he's there to grab what's in the bag, the points in the bag, and not keep pushing and pushing for bigger, greater things. He's not quite there yet. But fortunately for Colapinto, it's so much easier for a driver to learn where the edge is, where that peak limit of operating is, which then, if you get it right, converts to speed and consistent pace. And also, to top it off, tidy driving. Because I sense you can't teach speed and raw talent, but you can teach a driver not to crash. And I get the sense, had Williams really put more time into Sargeant to encourage him not to crash, so at the end of the day, they were left with a driver who doesn't have accidents, doesn't drive fast, doesn't score points, you'd be left with a driver who may as well not even be there at all, because it's just a non-entity, really. Because how often was there a situation where you looked at the driver standings during a race and you saw that Albon was 10th or 12th or something, and Sargeant was 19th or 20th, or even just out of the race completely? I can't remember exactly how many times that happened, but it just felt like every single time. But Colapinto, despite his accidents, he gave Williams something that they hadn't had in years, and that is a driver lineup that could score points on merit if the car allowed. But coming back to the Destructors Championship again, if there's anything good to claim from this, it's that if Franco Colapinto had not racked up any repair bills, not scored any points, and finished races 19th or 20th, we wouldn't be talking about him at all right now. And so a large repair bill whilst being fast means he's intriguing, and with the right backing and investment means he could go places. Because Franco still has some rough edges which need smoothing out. Of course he does, he's a rookie, he's only just had 9 starts, but if those can be taken care of, Williams, if they hold on to him, could be left with a serious driver at the end of the day. But also, he scored 5 points. And that's more than Liam Lawson was able to do, and he's supposed to be the answer to all of Red Bull and RB's problems. And there has been rumours, of course, of Flavio Briatore and Christian Horner sniffing around Colapinto and having meetings and things like this. And whilst they are just rumours, I wouldn't put it past either of them actually doing anything at this stage. But I think Franco's biggest challenge, the greatest adversity he's going to face for 2025, I think, is to stay relevant. Not just in the eyes of Williams, but also the rest of the F1 grid, the F1 community, and also his fans as well. And I say this because this conveyor belt producing these new drivers appears to be speeding up and being more effective, because after all, in 2025, we're going to have 5 newish drivers on the grid. And also, if any of the existing lot are unfit to race, you can probably throw in 1 or 2 more rookies in there as well. And so then potentially we're left with a situation where these 5 newish drivers put in some good results, make a name for themselves, and then potentially 2 more rookies come in as substitutes for drivers which are unfit. And then all of a sudden, Colapinto is perhaps yesterday's news. I mean, maybe not yesterday's news, that's probably a bit too strong, but certainly falling behind in the queue. But fortunately for Franco, he has a fan base, I'm sure, that will keep the interest levels ticking over for 2025. And no doubt we're going to see him in the Williams garage over the season as well. And in fact, I guarantee if there is a situation where Albon or even Sainz makes a mistake on track, the camera is going to immediately pan to Colapinto's reaction in the pits. Exactly the same as it did with Liam Lawson whenever Daniel Ricciardo or Sergio Perez made a mistake. So a big factor for this to work is to keep the hype train on the track and to keep this whole thing moving forwards. Franco, I think, has done enough to justify a seat for 2026, but he has to use 2025 to his full advantage. And straight away is this massive opportunity to work with a guy like Carlos Sainz, a proven race winner at Ferrari, and also both of them being Spanish speakers. You can count on perhaps a really great new relationship and bond being formed there. So if a seat does open up at Williams for 2026 after Sainz or Albon, or even both had left, Colapinto should be the first driver in the queue. But also he should be prepared to look outside Williams if need be. In fact, if he wants to fast track success, he should even make that a priority. So look, I hope he does keep it together in 2025 and does everything he can to stay relevant and secure a drive for 2026. But it's going to be very interesting to see how next year, how he conducts himself and how he just kind of soaks up everything as much as he can, because he seems like a great guy, intelligent driver, mature, and all these things. So it's going to be amazing to see how he manages the season. And in fairness to him, right now, he's crafted himself a very charming, humble, likeable image. And this clicks very well with fans, and not just Argentinian fans, and goes down well on social media. And yeah, F1 loves this. And it's going to be very interesting to see if he can keep this up so that when a seat is announced as vacant, he is the first guy that's name is mentioned. But now it's time to have your say. Is he going to end up at Williams? Will he go somewhere else? Will he be in F1 at all? Do let me know in the comments below. And while you're at it, please be sure to like, subscribe, and also check back for more videos because they're going to come thick and fast. So cheers for watching. I'm Paul, and I'll see you later. Cheers.